Thank you for tuning in, and welcome to part 2 of this building an industrial crow's nest video. So, after recording episode 1, all the stuff that I put on using plastic glue fell off, so I've reattached it with super glue and made quite a mess, but also cleaned up most of it. And as you can see, if you've been watching part 1, I've also added a few extra bits, mainly from some leftover bits from some Rhino sprues, and a little bit from the Dark Angel vehicle sprue. I threw some Rhino doors on the side because they take up a nice amount of space. I had thought about adding this one because I have more of these than I want for my Prometheum pipeline system, but it ended up sticking out in a direction, and I don't think that fits very well for this design. I still want this to fit with the industrial pipelines though, and I had no spare, hatches to put on to make it connectable, but then Lasfar gave me this along with a few other weird stuff he pulled out of a dog's chew toy. No kidding. And I figured putting that on here in the right height would be perfect to allow for connection of Prometheum pipelines. So that's what I'm gonna do. This one to measure that the height is right. Could probably have been a bit higher, but never mind that. And with that, you could obviously add a lot more. I've been playing a lot around with the thought of adding some gun emplacements or something to it, but but I think I'll stop here because knowing me, I could go on forever and end up with something that doesn't look as good as it could have. As a general rule, I suggest you just go through your bit specs, go through your friend's bit specs, look at the old vehicle sprues you have lying around, because anything Games Workshop added to a piece of homemade scenery will pretty much make it look more right next to the official kits, even if it's just a little ammo box or some Achilles. And transfers obviously also do a lot of difference. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna prime it using some store brand gray acrylic primer, hardware store brand, and once it's primed we'll get to paint it. Right, so now that it's primed, it actually starts to look a bit like a piece of scenery, I think. The first color I'm going to use is dark green, and you could do everything by brush on this, but to save some time I'll do a bit of airbrushing first and then go into the brushwork afterwards. So a healthy amount of dark green in the airbrush, no thinner or anything like that required. And I'll just start by focusing on these and this area. Next, I'm gonna take a little Sig green just to give a slight highlight, and I'll just mix it in with whatever is left of the dark green in the cup already. So, not rocket science here, just going at it like so. Turns out I am running out of stick green rapidly, so let's hope there's enough to finish here. An important highlight, of course, is below these lamps. Like that. And then I'm gonna clean out the airbrush, give this some dry time, and then I'm gonna come back in with some metal. Right. I haven't given it full time to dry, but enough to add the next color, and then I'll give it proper dry time after that. So, next up, some gunmetal. And again, just into the airbrush, nothing added. And this will be for the pipes running down the side, and don't worry if it spills onto the can, because that'll be painted by hand in a moment. And then for the walking area up here. Yep, and with that, I'll let it fully dry, and then we'll come in with the brush. Oh, something fell down. Right, let's get some paint onto this. First of all, we'll clean up the green a bit with some Iosen green. And now, a bit of gunmetal cleanup. And then a slightly smaller brush. Some Kato red base. Some brassy brass next. And finally, some Rakarth flesh, and that's just for the scrolled bannery things hanging down the side here. And after that, it's time to let all the colors settle a bit, and then we'll add some washes. So now, I'll take some Nuln Oil and some Agrax Earthshade. They've been tightly fastened with poster putty to the table. I have two brushes at hand, so I don't ruin the contents of the pots. And I'll aim the red. I'll aim the Earthshade primarily on the bronze areas and the red area, as well as the parchment down here, but also use it to to splash onto the silver areas along with the Nuln Oil to give some variation. And then I'll just give it plenty of time to dry, and hopefully this rain will have passed at that time, so we don't have to contend with the background sound of that. I changed my mind. I decided to add the Typhus Corrosion now also, because might as well not have to double up on dry time. And this only takes a moment. That's for all the areas in here. I'm gonna give all the metallic parts a rough dry brush of chainmail silver. You can see, unlike most times, I actually allow the dry brush to be streaky and leave way more pigment than I would normally do, and this is because we want to brighten it up and get the effect of worn metal. And then some Riza Rust. As some of you might have noticed, this is by far one of my favorite effect paints, along with the Secret Weapon Sewer Water and Typhus Corrosion, also from Games Workshop. And with this, as you can see, I still have quite a lot of paint on the brush. That's mainly for the areas in here, but also for spreading out on the silver areas here and there, just to give that orangey corroded feel that looks really great next to the green colors. And after that, I'll take a bit of Dread Bark. This one has almost dried out on me, but doesn't really matter for this. I'll use that to paint in some brown areas like this, around on the green, especially where I find that the wash have ruined the look and stuff. Or the glue, for that matter. And then I'm just gonna, without even cleaning the brush, grab some chainmail and proceed to add a bit of that into the areas where I just painted brown. Then for the scrolls, a bit of Pallid Wych Flesh, just to give them a bit of highlight. Just drawing some lines across them. Like that. And of course you could take much more time on the different elements of this, but the point here is to be to get a piece of scenery done too, so I'm not gonna sit down and carefully blend in anything. And then for the red areas, a bit of Khador red highlight. You can also use this to add a bit more rust if you want to. It's a color pretty much it's closely related to the Riza Rust color. So, and again, you can see I'm being quite rough with the way I'm doing the highlight. And if you wanted to make it seems like there is some text on the scroll plate or the scrolls, I'll use the dried bark, as I have some out already. And again, I'm not gonna actually write stuff, but you certainly could. But just giving the illusion of text by dotting some brown over the already brown area. Where if you went with black, it would stand out more, and therefore also be more visible that it actually says nothing and there's not even letters in there. It's all about fooling the eye, especially when doing scenery. Because we want it to look good, but we don't want it to take attention away from the models. So. If you actually took the time and wrote letters on this, I would suggest going with first a gray and then a black to make it actually pop, so people would see the result of your labor. This creates a nice illusion when it's just standing down on the tabletop, I think. So it's definitely tempting to add some transfers here and there on the rhino doors and on these, but I'm not gonna, because I think it has enough visual interest as it is now. I'm gonna paint the lights yellow, like on the other scenery pieces. Starting with some Avalon Sunset, and then some Flash Goods yellow. And before painting up the grill in front of the light again, I once more, as done in some of the other terrain videos, gonna take some Lamented yellow glaze, put it in the airbrush, and just make a really cheesy and quick OSL effect from the lights. I'll let it dry, and then add some anti-shine matte varnish all over it. And then we're almost done. All there is left to do is add a bit more weathering with some Secret Weapon sewer water. So yeah, I'll be back in a second. And then a bit of sewer water. And this is to give a bit of streaking and make it seem like we're in a more or less underground industrial hive. Because I imagine all sorts of fluids and shit, all sorts of fluids and stuff would be leaking down in such an environment. And no thinning is required for this, I find. And that will be for stuff like under here. We can imagine that it would have seeped down. And even though it is technically a green, I find that it once dry look really good on top of green, especially because we already added the matte varnish, so this will be shiny. And once dry, it's done. And here we have it, ready for the tabletop. I'm really happy with it. I think it's a great addition to my existing scenery. I like how the different effect paints and techniques come together. The mix of scratch building and usage of leftover bits. You could, of course, as mentioned, add more or less depending on what you have and what you like. So yeah, let me know below what you think, if you found something useful, if there was something you would have done differently, or yeah, Any comments are welcome. It will be a while before Hobby Tips contain scenery videos again, because I had requests for some more genuine hobby tips. So check back next Friday for those. And also, of course, Wednesdays for more Primaris Dark Angel videos. So with that, take care and bye bye.